A warm welcome to today's event, which is cybersecurity, and actually it's NIS2. I am your host for today. My name is Nisse, or Nils Eriksson, and in my normal day, usually I work as a product manager for the automation range here at Phoenix Contact, which means network, switches, PLCs, HMIs, IPCs, and so on. And with me today, I got my dear colleague,
Per Åman. I work as partner responsible at Phoenix Contact. And for this event, we have brought our dear friends from Afry.
Also JJ.
And also JJ, yes. Thank you.
JJ, who is our own.
Yeah, he's our own cybersecurity expert.
And believe me, we need help now, because cybersecurity is complicated and it's very hard to explain cybersecurity. So the goal of today is make you aware of what's going on and try to make it like a stupid automation guy like me, so I can understand it.
Yeah, for regular people.
Regular people.
Yeah.
Should we meet the experts? What do you think?
So.
I think so. I agree.
Yep.
Come on, let's go. Now I'm sitting here with my three experts, Mats, JJ, and Johanna. And Mats, who are you?
Mats Karlsson-Landré, OT security advisor with Afry.
OT?
OT is cybersecurity in industrial systems and automation systems. I'm also a blogger, running a site called otsäkerhet.se as a hobby project. Been doing this for 30 years.
And JJ?
Hi, my name is JJ, and I am the network and cybersecurity specialist from Phoenix Contact. And I'm very happy to be here to talk about NIS2 and how it impacts us. Yes.
Johanna?
Yes, I am Johanna Parikka Altenstedt, a legal specialist and sociologist. I'm also with Afry as Mats, and we work together often and talk about the directive NIS2.
And please today, no fancy words, because we are really simple people here. No. Talking of NIS2, Mats, what is NIS2?
In its basics, it's a directive from the EU. And the whole idea, if we want to condense it, is to make sure all countries in the EU have a similar level of cybersecurity in whatever operations that's important to society, at least from my point of view.
But it says two. What's two?
Yes.
Good
there
point.
There is a NIS directive, NIS, from 2017, I think we applied it. And it's about the cybersecurity level for critical society organizations and companies. But it hasn't really turned out well because countries have been implementing it very differently. So when a big company has come to European Union, they might find out that different countries have totally different laws about the cybersecurity, and it's really difficult to, have a product or a service to the whole common market when it's so different. So now European Union has decided that we really need to harmonize this, raise the level and harmonize NIS. So that's NIS2.
So NIS is for critical entities,
yes,
critical companies?
It's about the European Union, and the common market is about digital structures and networks and programs and applications, and we need to secure them. They need to be robust and they need to be secured, and that's what it is about. So it's about technology, but it's also about people doing the right things the right way.
Okay. NIS2, it's new. When will this be happening?
The idea was to have it implemented in October
This year?
This year?
2024.
Yes, 2024.
October 2024.
And we'll see how it pans out. It seems it's going to be different in different countries. So the last word isn't said yet. We'll see. But I would put my money on sometime during this year anyway.
And what do you say from a legal?
The Swedish implementation so far is a suggestion of a new law called cybersecurity law. And right now it's on the reference round. And in that law, the date has been put 1st of January 2025. So the next year, the first day, everyone should have it in place. But this law is not ready yet, so we don't really know. When you look at other countries, for example, Finland, they are going to follow this 18th of October deadline.
And Denmark?
They have, I think they have some formal excuse to be a little bit late also. So countries have had a dialogue with the European Commission about this.
How about Norway, for instance? They are not a member of the EU.
Well, Norway said that they were going to implement the NIS directive, and they did a lot of good work, but they never really made a NIS law. So now they are saying, okay, we are going to make a NIS2 law. So probably they will do that because they kind of missed the first NIS possibility.
So we're located in Sweden today, now here, all of us, but the whole European Union more or less will be affected by this. Which brings me to my second question, and I think I will start with Johanna this time. Who is affected by the NIS?
NIS2. The European Union wants to safeguard the critical functions in society. Yeah. And since we have so much digital structures, most of it is kind of critical, I would say. But anyway, they have said that basically the companies and organizations who are small or middle-sized or have a turnaround around 10 million euros, they will automatically...
10 million euros, is that in turnover?
Yes.
Or, okay.
That would, yes, they would automatically be hit by NIS2. But there are different other categories as well. And for example, if you're a supplier to very high-level critical functions as 5G, for example, then you might have a company, you might be alone or have a solo company, but you are actually producing a very, very important thing for 5G technology.
Then so sub-suppliers to that bigger companies is also affected?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the authorities can always point to a company and say, regardless what's in the law, you're affected.
May I ask a question? You just mentioned the size of a company, and you mentioned like more than 50 person employees, and also you mentioned like more than 10 million euro, right? Is that it's an or and condition?
Or that's the or,
condition.
yes. Yeah. But then Brussels have been quite clever, and they also decided that okay, there are several companies and organizations that really are in the scope of NIS2, but their suppliers will also be affected, even if the supplier as such is not in the scope.
If we look at us as Phoenix Contact, now I'm looking at JJ, my dear colleague here, our cybersecurity expert. Phoenix Contact, are we affected as a company?
Yeah, for sure. We are in the scope, yeah, especially when Johanna mentioned these critical things. And under NIS2, two type of company or organization are actually affected. One is, the essential entity, and the other one is important.
Stop it now. Entity.
Yes.
We are talking about those fancy words, entity, and I think we need an explanation, because entity is a word I never was taught when I went to my school English, my ABCs, a long time ago. What is an entity?
Well, an entity is an organization or something with quite clear borders that keeps it inside the core function inside. So entity can be like a company, but it also could be a department of a company that's producing something special that's in the scope of NIS2. So that is kind of Mats.
Yep,
You can explain it better, I think.
Well, yeah, I think that's the main thing. You need to know sort of the grouping to be able to put demands on it. So typically it's whatever organization that already exists, like a company or a municipality or something like that. Yeah.
But an entity, if you translate that into, if we take it a small Swedish word and Finnish word maybe, because we have the opportunity, what's the translation of entity?
In Swedish, in the suggested law proposition, it's verksamhetsutövare. And that means that in entity, you have like a leadership that can control the budget and the resources to be able to do whatever it is you are doing in that entity. So that's entity, verksamhetsutövare.
And in Finnish?
I can't remember now what the Finnish law said. Really sorry.
Is it aktör? No.
In the Finnish Swedish version, it's aktör.
Okay.
Yes, but in the Finnish version, I think it's toiminto, but I need to check that out.
Yeah. Sorry, back to JJ. It was you talking about entities. So Phoenix Contact.
Yeah, I mean, under this critical entity, there are like a power, electricity, drinking water, this kind of transportation, banking. But under important entities, there are like manufacturing, or especially under this, we have machine building, this kind of things. I think all of us, we work in the industry who doing like assistance, automation systems. Yeah, and building machines. Yeah, we are under the scope. Yeah, we all under the scope. Yeah.
And I think that's an important point to compare to the current NIS directive, that if you know about the scope of this is much, much bigger.
So more or less the whole market, industrial market is...
Well, more or less, or at least many sectors. So I think there's a big problem that this message haven't been sort of spread to manufacturers in many sectors, that they are indeed in scope for this law.
So, but you also talked about different sizes. So there are, as I remember, there are 3 different segments, right? With depending on how many employees, it's large, medium, and small.
Yes, that's basically this large, medium, and small, and it's the common measurement in European Union. It's being used all over in different kinds of legal situations, so it's not specific for this directive.
But there is also, I think, all these, they have different, what do you call it, punishments, right? I don't know how we should call it, and who is punished? And how much?
Yeah, as usual these days, there's penalties if you don't abide by the rules. And NIS2, as most other EU directives these days, come with a monetary penalty. So you get fines, basically, if you don't follow the rules. But also they did something interesting, and I know the legal people are interested in this, that you can basically forbid the CEO or members of the board of directors to perform their role in the company if they don't drive security work properly. This is an extreme, of course, but it's in the law, and it could be used by authorities to remove people that are not sort of focused on security.
The Swedish suggestion for the law is comparing this with, I'm not sure how to say it in English, näringsförbud. They have kind of they took that ruling and lifted in the suggestion. So the companies could kind of lose their leadership if the leaders are not performing properly.
But it's the general managers at the companies that's responsible.
Those who have control over the budget and the resources, those who can make it happen, those who can make the cybersecurity happen. But if they don't do it and something really serious happens, it needs to be a serious incident. And if the governmental agencies, if they find out that this has been due their uninterest or something like that, that's when the punishment can put in place.
Yeah, I think some case maybe you can correct me. So the management team, they might not spend their resource, or they might not manage the cybersecurity or in advance, or they do not prepare for this. For example, like this, or when the cyber incident happen, then you try to hide the information. You try not to communicate, try to disclose the information, you try to hide all these kind of things. Like, I mean, eventually maybe obey the laws, right? So that may get punishment. Yeah.
Yes, and the thing is that one of the toughest articles and paragraphs in the Swedish law and all the laws in different countries is about that the management needs to be educated in NIS2 directive.
Oh, so there is lots of demands on our general managers as well. Yep. But in practice, I know we're going to get a bit more into detail what you have to do and stuff, but I'm thinking about a typical customer, maybe they have 50 employees in total, let's say that. They don't have that much resources to do all this. Because I don't think the general manager can do everything on his own. I think that's a fantasy, more or less. So they need to give these things and dial it out to the different company people. Who is, to make it easier, who should be in this group? Or is it a single man that you put responsible for the NIS 2.0, or should it be a group like in safety? Now I'm talking about machine safety. You usually use this 4I principle, for instance, that you always want to have two persons to look at it because there are so many aspects on what's dangerous or not. But is it for the human resources? Do you recommend it? Or is it the quality department? Or is it the financial department?
And I guess that's, first of all, a good question. And I think we need to remember that this is all about not protecting anything cyber. It's making sure that we have production that goes on, even though we might be hit by cyber attacks or other problems, whatever. So it's more about making sure we can continue produce whatever we're producing, even though we sort of are degraded in some manner. So in my mind, it would come closer to production, whatever type of production.
The automation team.
Yeah.
So they can make a standalone system that can run.
But if you look at the directive and the Swedish suggestion for the law, there are demands for the management, education, and there are a lot of demands about different kind of reporting systems and practicing, like people are practicing if there is a fire in the house.
Yeah.
We need to practice also what to do if we see that there is a ransomware spreading in all our computers. And the thing about cybersecurity is that you don't have time. Time is very limited. You need to make very fast decisions and do very fast movements to be able to mitigate the effect of the cyber threat. Yeah. And so it's a lot about organizing people, educating them in the organization, I would say. And that's why it needs to go to the management board first. They need to look at this from the helicopter perspective, and they need to understand that this is something that really affects the whole organization. For example, the suppliers who are not in the scope of the law but still need to protect their own digital systems and structures if they are going to be suppliers to for example, your company. And what you are going to do is that you need to kind of renegotiate a lot of contracts. And you need to put in the contract demands to your supplier that they need to have this high level of cybersecurity.
But that brings us out another point, because in the future, if you want to be an attractive supplier, you really should have this covered,
Exactly.
I think. So it will be sort of like a market demand, it looks like, in the future.
Yes, and it's very much like the journey we have done with sustainability before. The same kind of thinking. It's spreading like the rings on the water, and companies who are really organized with sustainability, they also have easier to get the good contracts.
Sorry, may I ask one question? Because when you mentioned this, it's very clear, but there's one thing when you mentioned organization, right? And I also met some, like our customers, and very often they ask me, just like Nessa just asked, our company does not have that many people, or they say, yeah, we have a headquarters and we are just subsidiaries. So who should take this responsibility, right? Just high level manager, like C-level, maybe they are sitting in the headquarters, but they are, for example, in our case, they are in Germany. But in Sweden, we have management team, and we are more than 50 people. Yeah. But then in this case, then who should take, for example, when we talk about this fines and sections, these kind of things. So how the law will define which country or which one to take?
The law doesn't really define that. The law says that you need to think that from your organizational point of view, and you need to know your risks for your organization, and then you need to organize the work from that point of view. But I mean, we have done that with security, we have done that with sustainability, we have done that with quality. So it's not like a rocket science. We can do it also with the cybersecurity, and look at how the systems and structures in organization are functioning, and learn from that, I think. And then you have consultants, of course. You can also have a consultant who can help you.
But does it mean that in the law does not like very solidly written down? And for example, we Finnish content Sweden here, we are actually covered in the important entities, but we can be monitored independently from our headquarters, or we can take a whole together. Both possible.
You need to have a dialogue with your headquarters.
I guess a hint, at least, is that when you discuss the turnover, if you're in scope or not, that's the global turnover.
Exactly.
Which sort of alludes that
not the subsidiary,
the global
it's
management.
The global.
Yes, and the administrative fine can be up to 2% of the global turnover.
But the thing I took with me is that you have to probably put together a team or use consultants like Afry, of course. You provide this service, I guess.
Yep.
But if you have someone in the team that's doing this, of course they must be having the resources to do this. I think that is because usually this is something, we put under the table and we need to fix it because we need this NIS2 approval or whatever it is. But you really need to give this person the resources.
I think there's a point in using somebody that's done this before, because what we come across is that a company realize we're not in scope, no way. But then if you sort of scratch at the surface, you find something that makes them in scope anyway. They have this small power generation facility in the corner of a factory. Wait a minute. That's in scope. How does that affect and that's tricky. So you need to know about these pitfalls.
I have a very, very concrete advice that I sometimes give to my customers. make a time code for cybersecurity work and start signing all your time you put into cybersecurity work. Because after a while, you can show that to the management board, for example, and look, I'm working 1 day per week with these questions. So that's a good start. Make it visual that we actually need to work with cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And coming back to what we talked before, maybe you should remember you need to do two analyses. You first need to realize, are we in scope? Are we affected by the law?
But that's black and white.
Yeah, even though it might be tricky. But regardless of that, you also need to think about what, if any, of our customers are in scope. Because at some point, they will show up saying, now we have these new demands on cybersecurity. We want to renegotiate. And if you're not prepared for that, you're going to lose business. Yeah.
And I can mention that our colleagues, Afry colleagues in Finland, have told me that big companies already right now in their tenders are asking for cybersecurity compliance. Yes, so it's already there.
It's already a market demand.
Yes, it's a market demand. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, everything you talked about, it sounds a bit complicated. And we at Phoenix, we have worked, I think it's more than 15, 20 years with something called IT-powered automation. And it's going this way, and we have seen that for a long, long time. But I'm an automation guy. I hate this quality stuff, and I want to have the minimum effort. And I read somewhere there is this minimum demands in NIS2. And now I'm looking at you, Johanna, because I want to cover my back as good as possible. I want to have the least effort how to handle this.
Yes. Well, Brussels has made it a little bit easier for us. So they have actually collected minimum compliance level in something called Article 21 to Article 21, we can say. And the Swedish law has taken this Article 21, the 10 points, and put them into 9 points in the law. So they put together a few things there. And it has been said that if you comply those 10 points, then you should be okay with NIS2.
Okay, that makes our day clear. I think we should cover these in a simple way, as easy as we can, these 10 points or 9. No, let's see.
Yeah. Maybe to put that in a slightly positive air, the preface to that list is that you should perform an all hazards approach to security. And this is the minimum list. Yeah. But still, it's a good list. So, but we should remember that you're still expected to think for yourself.
All hazards means that you are protecting the cyber, and you are protecting the physical devices, buildings, and you have a protection for the persons working and visiting your company, and you are protecting all the information, data and information, like GDPR thing. So that's all hazards approach.
And for automation people especially, all hazards approach doesn't only apply to the risk. It could apply to the remediation of the problem as well.
Remediation?
How you solve the problem. So if you have something that's caused by cyber, whatever problem, maybe you can solve it by adding something physical in your process instead.
Or if you think about, for example, production of drinking water. I've been working quite a lot with water production, drinking water production lately. And there's a lot of digital parts in the production today, monitoring things and putting stuff in the water and so on, and changing in the flow in the pipes and so. But if all the digital structure would just fall one day, we have produced drinking water before. So if you find the guys who did it during the old days, they would be able to do it manually still. And that could be the physical solution to the cyber problem.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I think this also brings about my idea to start building more autonomous architectures, that everything can be standalone. And I think it also, because then you're not depending on anything else. JJ.
Yes, thank you. I have one question regarding those 10 minimum requirements, because you mentioned in the NIS2 regulation, we have this 10 minimum requirements, and in Sweden, we put it into 9. But my question is, and I was expecting in the law, in the country law, this minimum requirement will be more solid in more detail. Because if we look into this 10 requirements, it's a very big topic, like a business continuity plan, risk analysis plan, or incident handling. And these are all the big topic. And in the country law, will there be anything like into more detail? For example, we just, we say business continuity plan. And as Mas mentioned, maybe we can do something physical to do this. But in that topic, will we see any detailed information?
Yes, you will, but we don't know when. Because the Swedish way of producing new law is that first comes the law, and then the act, förordning underneath, telling a little bit more in detail how to do it. And then all these control agencies, government agencies, they will produce their recommendations and norms, norm giving, like föreskrift is the word. They will come later on, but that might take 1 year or 2 years before that advice is in place. So you still need to comply with the law, and it means you need to think for yourself.
If we look at the current, for the current NIS directive, the corresponding texts from these agencies, they're not very detailed. There's no checklist that you can go through and mark off.
It's very different, and then there is also that issue that they have. Some of the agencies have taken like 5 years to come out with the advice. That was the case of drinking water, and one of the agencies have not come with the norms yet, and so we don't really know. It could be that it's very different in different sectors, that in some sector you get very detailed rules fast, and in some other sectors you might just sit and wait for them.
But will there be any kind of common standard for this? Or, for example, a sector-specific standard for this in the future?
We hope that there will be, and we know that Commission is working also, and going to European Commission is coming also with directives and advice how to read the NIS2. So, but when that is ready, we don't know yet.
And then we always have, going back to the directive, a statement about security measures should be proportional to your risks, the risks in your organization. And there's never going to be a list from a government authority telling you what your risks are. So that work is always back on your own organization.
But I would like to also remind that the säkerhetsskyddslagen, the security law for the national security. It's also the kind of law that organizations are supposed to have workshops and discuss their risks and try to figure out on what level we are. It's not like a checklist from the government. So that is quite common in these cases.
There is one question I forgot to ask, who is going to supervise that the companies are following this NIS2? Who is the supervising? Like, for instance, if I make a packaging machine for food and beverage, who is checking me up?
Typically, what the law says is that, or the directive really, is that in each country there's one agency that has the overall responsibility, and then there can be other ones that are sector specific.
Okay.
So depending on what you do, you'll end up with a different agency, basically.
Yes.
So it could be Livsmedelsverket or whatever. I am not sure.
Yes, or yes.
Yeah. So typically, using Sweden as the example, the suggestion now says that if you're in industrial manufacturing, whatever sector, you're being probed by Länsstyrelsen, the regional authority.
Yes. And it's only a few Länsstyrelsen county boards in Sweden involved in this. Four. So it's not like all the 21. So I think we have a list of 11 agencies, and the overall agency would be MSB.
Okay. I think we're falling a bit out of track because we talked about these 10 bullets, right? Yep. And I would like to have a quick word around each bullet. And they are from A to J, I see here. And the first one is called policies on risk. And
yeah, I can take that.
Yeah, Mats, of
and
course.
That's really at the core of it all. Since this is supposed to be risk-driven, the company or organization should have a single way of dealing with risk and a single way of measuring risk and pushing this up towards the management team. So I guess this is sort of having policies on this, making sure that everybody does this in a way that's usable by upper management, since they're actually responsible for this.
I would like to add that now that we start talking about risks, we often kind of forget to mention what that is. The whole point, it's like the geopolitical risks, it's the military risks, it's the hackers, it's the cyber criminals. They are the risks, really, that Brussels wants us to deal with. Yeah. So we really need to see the bad guys out there. That's the reason why we're doing this. And that's why we have this risk policy also on this list.
And these policies, if you would make a recommendation to this medium-sized company, is that something that should belong to, is it the quality department who is doing the policies, or who would you suggest? Who would be a...
Hopefully you're already doing some kind of risk management at some level. And this should be included in that. You should not have multiple ways of doing risk analysis. So whatever way you're doing it, good or bad today, use that and build on that.
Unfortunately, I have seen a lot, because I worked with safety, and what people always miss, they put a lot of safety devices there, but I don't see this complete risk estimation of the
very common
machine. It's very common. So I think it's something to consider, who is doing these policies.
Well, I think the management should know where to put it. It's their job, kind of, where to put it. But the risk assessment needs to be done. And you cannot take one person who goes to his or her room and makes a risk assessment. You need to talk with people. You need to have contact with everyone to find the risks and the threats that there are.
I guess we should remember also that if you're doing quality control in this way, according to ISO 9000 or environment 14,000, security, whatever, all these standards and all these management systems are risk-driven today. So unless you're sort of faking it today, you are already.
So there is nothing new.
It shouldn't be anything.
It shouldn't
new,
be.
But in many cases it is. But now is the time to get it going.
Then we move on to the next point, B, I call that one, incident handling. JJ.
Yeah, I think according to the directive, in the instant handling means that you have to, as Johanna mentioned, you have to respond or react to instant, in a tiny manner as soon as possible. So according to the directive, within 24 hours, you should hand in a report, like an early report saying, okay, there's something happened to my company or something to my system, and saying that, okay, one very important thing is you should highlight this incident caused by certain kind of attack, malicious attack, or it might spread to the internet or to the other countries. I think that's one very, very important thing that NIS2 want to like push us to spread out this information so that everyone can protect themselves as quick as possible. Yeah, this is one of the key thing about incident handling. And I would like to say this process, I think in most company or organization, it's not ready yet. And we don't even have the person to do that. So that I think in the future that company, they might try to figure out how to fix this by themselves or try to get some help from the consultant company like that. Yeah.
But you said something very important there, that in this directive, European Union really wants us to learn before we know really what's going on. So it's not like you need to know what is going on first, and then you will tell for the MSB or whoever that reporting part would be. But you see something is going on here, and we see something funny is going on. You need to learn in 24 hours, both to the reporting company and to your customers and to your suppliers and whoever might be affected of this. So also the so-called near misses have to be documented, that something almost happened.
So if you're a sub-supplier to a company, you have to inform them about this.
Yes, and that's a big change, because a lot of companies are for example, listed on stock exchange lists, and they are used to not to talk about things that are going wrong or that could be a threat. And now they want us to talk about it, and fast, and be transparent.
And of course, there's another side as well. Incident management reporting is one piece, but we actually need to do something about the incident as well.
Yeah.
In 1 month's time, you need to have the final report and report to the control agency what happened and why and so on. So it's going to go fast. That's
also a challenge. You need a person who is like maybe technically understand what happened and do analysis and making a report to do this final report to the authority.
But in the same time, if you look at Tieto Afry, for example, the big attack that happened now 2 months ago, hundreds and hundreds of companies and municipals were affected by that. And when they knew that it was the malware from Tieto Afry, then everyone actually has the same kind of report. I mean, it's the same root cause. So in a way, companies can help each other also in that situation.
I think we need to move on. We can talk forever about this. C, business continuity. That sounds pretty...
Yep. And that's really the natural progression from incident handling. We need to make sure we can do something about making our production survive whatever has happened. So that starts, of course, being able to detect that we have an incident, hopefully before something breaks down or explodes or whatever, and then making sure we stay producing and that whatever stops comes back to produce again quickly, being resilient against external forces.
Also in business continuity, we need to control who we are employing and who we are dealing with, because it's not to stop business. It's not only that something will explode. It can also be someone in the wrong position, actually, an insider working against your company.
Supply chain security we're on now.
Well, I guess this is one of the major pieces, if you ask me, in NIS2, that even though you're not in scope of the directive, your organization most likely will be affected indirectly anyway. And this will be an interesting challenge for many companies, just knowing how your vendors could affect you if they have a problem. And how do you demand that they do something about it? That's tricky. And it's a contract thing. It's not a law thing.
But my suggestion is that, or my guess is that, like big companies might have 11,000 suppliers, so it will be impossible to contact everyone and renegotiate the contracts. We probably will get formal kind of legal documents just to sign, as it is with GDPR, for example. So that must be that road we are going on.
Yeah, I think under this item, each country or all the organization has two sides of this. Because one side, we are as a supplier. But on the other hand, we need to manage our suppliers. So we are a supplier for our customers, and on the other hand, we have suppliers. So how to manage this is also managing us how we respond to customers' expectations, and also how we manage the vendor, the suppliers. Yeah, and as Johanna said, for example, like Furnace Contact, we are a company over like more than 100,000 products. Then how to manage this, that will be
and also we always have a second source on each component, so it's a very hard thing to handle. Now we go to my favorite topic, security network, and I push this immediately to you, JJ.
Thank you, Nessa. And I mean, this is also my favorite point because I am a network and cybersecurity guy, you know. And also, when you look into this directive, the name of the directive is Network and Cybersecurity, Information Security. So network is the fundamental part of protection. I very often say this is a kind of architect, the castle that protects your king and queen in the castle. So you need to build a good castle. That's why the network itself is so important. So when you want to develop your cybersecurity protection, this is something mandatory and probably is maybe the highest priority at the beginning. Yeah, that build the fundamental thing. Yeah, protection. Yes.
This is very different because when I started with cybersecurity, it was a firewall. You're safe. It's very different now.
And we also have this thing in the companies and also in municipals, and so that for a long time we have been introduced to digitalization as a very easy, light solution, helping us, transparent. You know, we put it in the cloud and everything is solved, and everything is talking with everything. Internet of Things. You know, now we need to kind of as you say, we need to make small islands who are not talking to each other. Meanwhile, we people didn't talk to each other from different departments very much. The legals are there, and the HR is there, and the production guys are there. Now we need to start talking. People need to talk, and the systems need to be isolated.
It's IT, OT. Everyone remembers these wars going on.
I often compare this to people are upgrading the engine on their car to go faster. It's the digitalization, but they forget to upgrade the brakes and install seat belts for disaster recovery and so on. We need to sort of have that balance. You can't go faster if you don't have the proper brakes as well.
Policies and procedures is the next point.
And actually, it's very specific policies and procedures. It's about measuring how well you do on security.
How do you measure this?
That's really difficult.
Yeah.
I very rarely come across companies that do this properly. But it's so important. If we can measure this, the management can sort of, again, guide this and allocate resources in a way that's meaningful and make a positive effect.
But how do you measure how secure?
You need to make it into numbers, documenting numbers. You need to find key measures, key figures, KPIs for cybersecurity. It could be number of incidents and solved incidents, or could be the number of hours put into the cybersecurity work or things like that.
But you mentioned something similar like the maturity, the idea of maturity level.
Yep. That's also something to go after. There's various standards to do that. That's also a way of sort of showing that we actually make progress and where our weakest points are, so we can go after that first.
And the management has a very, very important role here, because the directive is really clear on that this is the management responsibility to see to that there are written policies and instructions and routines which are decided by the management. So so you cannot anymore have someone in the middle of the organization writing, let's have a key policy here for our doors and keys, and put it in some system, and then no one knows there's a policy. And if the control agencies are coming and asking for the policy, it's not enough if people didn't know about it and if the management level didn't know about it. So in the future, all these kind of documents has to go through the highest management, so they really know and control and lead the cybersecurity work in their organization.
Now we come to the next point, which I also think is quite interesting. Basic cyber security hygiene.
Okay. When you went to the hotel and stayed there last time, which Wi-Fi did you log in?
I use my phone as a hotspot.
Good. That's cyber hygiene.
Okay.
It's small things like that, protecting your devices and your connections.
Oh. Yeah. USB sticks, policies.
Yes.
Knowing what to do and doing it well to sort of remove the
passwords,
most obvious problems. So.
Changes, and it's very common in OT environments that there is like a policy for passwords, and then you come there and talk to them, and they say, everybody knows that password. We use the same, and we had it 15 years. That's not cyber hygiene.
Point H, policies and procedures. Cryptography.
Yeah, exactly. And
we talked about this earlier, VPNs and all this stuff.
If we focus on automation and this arena, encryption is typically not something people are enthusiastic about. And the directive is not saying, which I've heard people interpret it as, you have to encrypt everything. That's not what it's saying. It says, consider if there's benefits to using encryption or signing or something else in your area that helps.
Like OPC UA and all these?
Could be, or any other of the more modern ways of communicating that's slowly getting here. But also remember, adding encryption adds complexity, and in some cases that's a bad thing overall. So it's a trade-off between protecting the information and protecting the production.
There is also this part of when we are communicating, distance working and having distance meetings, that one should think about it, that you need encrypted channels if you are going to talk about weaknesses and secrets, cyber secrets, and how you send materials over, not over Outlook and open email, but you have some channel where you can, where you have this, for example, the architecture, cyber architecture documents and things like that. Not collect them in a Teams room, for example.
But I'm thinking about more in an automation point of view. I work with Profinet, Modbus, whatever, these kind of protocols, and all we care about, from my point of view, is to get that data as fast as possible and exchange it. And encryption, that takes time. And I don't think we're chasing milliseconds all the time.
Yeah.
And
but how long time does it take if you get virus in the system and then you have to stop everything. Takes longer time than doing maybe this encryption.
But I think we're coming back to what I mentioned before about proportionality. That use this where it's meaningful and don't use it where it might even hurt you.
Yeah.
So know your operation and know your risks.
Yeah, I think Matt mentioned this concept is very, very important because cybersecurity is when we talk about solution to cyber threat or cyber attack, the solution normally is not a single solution. You can do it in different ways. So one way you can do encryption, on the other way, maybe you can do like network restriction, so the network flow can only flow on this track, so no one can see it. It's also another kind of protection. So by doing different kind of using different kind of countermeasures, you can reach the goal. But encryption is one of them. Yeah. So you should consider, for example, if you mention automation, you have a real-time restrictions, and if you want to have this data monitoring,
on the SCADA
detections,
level,
then it's impossible for encryption. So you have to think about this. Yeah, when you design the system, it's the overall consideration. Yeah, that's why we need consultants.
Agree.
And then we have human resources security. What are we talking about here?
Well, we are talking about securing the personnel who is working in the company. We need to be sure who we have employed, and we need to be sure who are, our partners.
So we should do a background check on every employee.
If you are a critical entity and you're supplied to something very important nationally or on the common market, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this especially I would like to add on one thing is many companies consider the employees, right? They would focus on the employees' cybersecurity on them, right? But I would like to highlight, don't forget the insiders. The insiders include the contractors or the suppliers. They also, you should consider when the people walk in, right? Or the subcontractor working for you. For example, you have water treatment system running, and you have subcontractor to operate the system, and those people, they are not belong to your company, but you have to security check on those people.
Yeah, for example, that you can have in your contract with your supplier that they have to have names for those people who are coming to your production and do something. So the supplier cannot change and take someone new or under supplier, whatever, So it's like, we have seen this in the building sector, so it's nothing really new. We need to be really...
But how do we handle this? For instance, there is a big trend right now with remote access, cloud controls, where you have a tunnel going into your system and you have bought this piece from vendor A. You don't know who is, should you create profiles or something like that?
Yeah, I was about to say that access control in general is important here. And I think we're seeing a move towards better remote access solutions that support those actual needs, that you may not always know who's coming in, but you can control what they're doing anyway, or perhaps monitor what they're doing as they do it, or whatever is needed.
And no one needs to have more access than they actually need for their work. So
need to know basis.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have the last point, the use of multi-factor authentication, which was more almost what we talked about, Mats.
Yeah, and this is actually a very long text, but it's basically all the rest of those good things that typically show up, like multi-factor authentication and similar protection of communication. So it's a catch-all, the last bullet.
I think one of the reasons is because I think from cybersecurity point of view, we don't like password. We don't like username and password. Try to avoid username and password. Use multi-factor authentication probably is one of the better option.
I think they're also saying they're going after a buzzword in the IT arena now, zero trust,
Zero trust.
which is a whole day of different discussions. So we don't want to go into that here, but they're going after this, let people access what they need, as we said before, and nothing else. Make sure the right person accesses the right stuff and nothing else.
So when everything of this is covered, these 10 points we just talked about, we're good to go. And if we should finish up a little bit, out of these 10, which one is dearest to your heart, Mats?
I guess at the core of it all is the risk management, really. Maybe not the sexiest one, but without that, you'll be spending your money on stuff that doesn't help you. So if you know your risks and how it will affect you, you can sort of put your money there.
And Johanna?
Well, of course, I am very fond of compliance, so that we would kind of follow the law and the rules. But we are people, and people tend to do things in different way and not always very rationally. And I think this creating a cybersecurity culture in the organization, and where we have cyber hygiene, and where we have open atmosphere where people actually can talk about the mistakes they do or situations they have been in. I believe that's the key to kind of get all the 10 points in effect here. So I really like to work with people in this case.
And JJ, of course.
Yeah, I mean, always when anyone asks me about cybersecurity, I always tell them, oh, cybersecurity is a huge topic and there's so many things to learn. And the more I learn, I feel more humble. And for example, like this 10 point, each single point it can be a subject in the master degree, right? You learn master. So, and very often I tell the customers, I say, if you are going to implement cybersecurity, then you need a strategy. You need a strategy. For example, like Mats just mentioned, risk analysis is the most important beginning. And then what is following to do is you have to figure out what is the highest priority thing you have to do first. So for me, that's the network part, network structure.
But it's fun. I agree with you.
Yes.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, you need to build a castle. Otherwise, you have the password or multi-factor authentication that doesn't use, because you don't have a castle, you don't have a wall that people to go through, right? The castle is more important. So the network part, the network architecture is the fundamental thing that you have to do the first. Yeah.
But I think that's also important, and that's why the reason we're sitting here with Afry, because we at Phoenix are very good with hardware, but someone has to implement this in a good way. And it's not as easy as just buying a router or a switch or whatever. You have to use it the right way. And, and also another thing you mentioned here, I think it was Johanna when I picked you up, common sense. People should start using common sense.
But I think also that we have had a bit of a success when we work together. So he is coming from the engineering part, I'm coming from the compliance and the sociology part. And when we are together looking into an organization, that's when we get all these corners with us.
I think it's probably wise words. Yep. You're not strong alone, but together.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's sum it up. Where should we begin now? Should we, as a company, how should we make use of all this information, this fantastic information you have given us today? How should we start?
There's a lot of things you can start with, but I think one of the most important things is to see NIS2 as a solution to your problems. It helps you. NIS2 is not the problem, it's the solution. If you start thinking like that, I think then you can see the next steps.
Yeah, so you got some good thing about this. these discussions?
I think
What's the advantages?
Exactly. I think the EU actually managed to do exactly what security professionals have always been asking for, not to have this checkbook list of solutions, but making organizations actually work with risk and security. And it's going to be a struggle for many at start, but this will have very good effects. I'm super positive for the whole directive.
Yeah. JJ?
Yeah, I think this is something really, really good for the industry because we're facing this cyber attack and cyber threat on one hand. On the other hand, the company organization are pushed to enhance the security is also a requirement for them. It's a kind of burden. But take it in the positive way. Also, from my point of view, probably this is one of the best or one of the biggest opportunity in the history. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm very, very young. So, compared to IoT, that was also a mega trend, right? All the countries talk about digitalization and so on, but IoT and cybersecurity is different. IoT is something that you can choose if you want to do or not, but cybersecurity is something you have to do. And when you have to do, you have to think out how to do it better. And cybersecurity is something, it's not like only technical. It's also about organization and operation, policy and procedure, right? And also technology. Using this as a competitive advantage for your company, making your company different to the others. So when you compete with your competitors, it's not only the products, but also your company itself, how you run your company. Right, your organization, do you have the operation ready? This is something the competitor cannot copy. I think that's a very, very good information, a good chance for all of us to take. Yeah.
Also, I think one important aspect is this is protecting the income for the customers.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a very good thing.
And we need to remember that it's not about having the most security. It's about having the security that you need to protect
The
your
right
organization.
security.
Enough security.
As we say in Sweden, lagom.
Lagom?
Lagom. About right. Okay, my dear guest, thank you very much for joining me today. It's really been a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon again. And you're going to be at the Scanautomatic Fair,
We'll see. Afry will be there for sure.
and I hope I will see you there. So once again, a big, big thank you from my side, and I wish you a fantastic day.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Yes. Yep.